Hello everyone. Today we are going to create a studio clone using a Next.js app directory. Now what we're gonna have in this entire website, we're gonna have a logo, and then in the header section we have the contact button and also the home icon button. Once you click in that icon, as you see, it's giving you the background effect and all the button which we can toggle through to go and visit the pages, and also we have that follow us link, and this all are connected. If you click, the action will be taken. Like if I click in the YouTube, it will just directly fetch to my channel where you can find lots of video like that. So feel free to go and subscribe and hit the likes button to reach with the more people around to create some more video. And after that section, let's go back to the home again. So now this is the pretty much everything for the header. Now after the header we have one hero section where we are having some text and the purpose, and we have that the client section, and then we are having that the case study section, which will be the work. Actually, if we click any of that, it will take it to the particular field with that actual details, and as you see, overall the details looks very clean and very fit with the details and all other things, so you can go through with that. And now after having that portion, we are having again one of the testimonial section over here. Then we have the services, how the services we are providing. As you see, it's pretty sleek, and as whenever I'm scrolling, did you see how that motion is affecting? We're using the fade-in, and fade-in is trigger from the framer motion to create that unique style of motion. So now let's go back to our work section, and in the work, as you see, that's the same of the case studies we can actually follow up over here. And after the work section, if we go to the about us, you can see visit the about section of the company proposition and how the company is running every other things. And let's go to the process, how we work. And in the process, we are just partializing it with the three section: discover, build, and deliver. And by the way, this is one of the Tailwind CSS template which they made it as a studio. We are going to clone it the same, so that's the studio clone for that. And I'm gonna show you how you can create from this scratch to that design, and it will be a very fun to make that one. And let's go back to the blog, and as you see in the blog, we can click the blog and we can see all the blog details. And by the way, if you click in the contact us, it will show us the contact us page, where you can see in the left side we have the addresses, and in the right side we have that input field with pretty unique design. And by the way, this design actually fully responsive. Like if I just shrink my screen, as you see, it's available and highly responsive for any devices, even also the mobile devices. So this is the things we are going to build. We're gonna create everything from this scratch using the Next.js 13 and also the Tailwind CSS for styling and the framer motion to creating the motions and all other things, because we're gonna create so many of that reusable component which can help you out to learn something more about how actually the things is working with that Next.js. So to begin with, I have one I take one folder, and in that folder I'm gonna just open my terminal. Now to start with, let's go to the Next.js documentation. As you see, to create the installation we need this code only, so let's copy that one, and let's go ahead back to our terminal. And so now we need to give a name, so I'm gonna give the name of that Studio YT. And after giving that one, so what it gonna do, it gonna also asking me some of the questions over here. As you see, you can feel free to read all the documentation to understand how actually that Next.js application is working under the hood. That you will give you a better understanding once you read everything. But for this today's build, just follow through me, it will be all right. Okay, so let's proceed. And now it's gonna ask me all about the questions. So for this video, I'm not gonna using the TypeScript because it's actually focusing more over the designing pattern. And also, yes, I want slint Tailwind CSS, yes, and I want to use the source directory so that I can keep everything in a single source folder. And then yes, I want to use the app router. All the router we're gonna create using the app router. Okay, so now what it's gonna do, it's gonna prefetch all the necessary dependencies to run our application. Just give it a little bit of time to just install each and everything from the core. So everything is installed. Let's just put ls to see where we are. Okay, let's go inside the directory of Studio YT, cd Studio YT. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just open that in my code editor, or you can also go through with that over here, and then you can just go in here and you can open it inside your code editor, but I will just open it in that way, code dot, and as you see it's already opened in my editor. So that's the beginning boilerplate to start with any Next.js application. And to do any kind of things, first of all, let's just run that application to see what we are going to get by default. And to run that one, we need to run this command npm run dev. So it will start spinning in our development environment, which will be in localhost 3000, as you see. If I click on that, so let's give it the time to spinning around, and while it's doing that one, let's head back to our application to see what we have. We have that next directory, we have this node modules of ours. This next actually responsible to creating all the caching and all the server and static, everything it will just handle from here. Then we have our public folder, pretty much we are not touching that one, we have nothing to do with that. And then for this build, we are not going to handle the public. So now we have in the source app there, we have our app directory, and inside our app directory, we have our Fabi icon, global CSS for the Tailwind CSS, we have the layout, and we have the page. So first of all, I'm gonna use that JSX, not the JS. So let's just turn into JSX, and also in the layout, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna rename it as JSX. So now this is, I think, pretty much all. Let's just make a little bit bigger so that you can see it properly. So now whatever you can see here, whenever you're spinning in localhost 3000 in the beginning, it's all coming from this file from the page.jsx, or if you're using the TypeScript, it will be the page.tsx or the page.js. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove everything, and I'm gonna take another main tag, and now let's just get a p tag. This is our new app. So once we hit the save, as you see, we have our new app, but there is some kind of styling going on, as you see the background and other things. This is coming from that global CSS. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove everything, just I'm gonna keep that 3 line, which will give me the Tailwind configuration. So okay, and now what I'm gonna do, actually remember this Fabi icon, I'm not gonna use that, so I'm gonna remove that one from here, and I'm gonna drop my Fabi icon, which I'm gonna use actually, which is my initial. And then also I'm gonna take 2 more things from my previous application, and which will be the image and fonts, and I'm gonna drop in my source folder. So here is the source folder. I have my fonts and I have all the images I'm gonna use through in this entire build. So don't worry about it. All the images, the font family and everything, it will be in the link, wherever it will be in the link in the description, where I'm gonna give you a GitHub link. You can go through there and you can download, or you can just clone it to use in your application. I'm gonna show you at the end of the video, so don't take any headache about it, how you're gonna get it. So now what we need to do, so first of all, let's get a visual understanding how we are going to start. So as you see, to start with, we have this header section. We're gonna create it first, and then in the header we have one section as the logo, and then we have in the right section where you're gonna have 2 buttons, contact us and that home button. So these 2 things we are gonna create at the beginning. So let's start to create it. So first of all, as you see, once I click that, like once I change my Fabi icon, my entire icon actually change. As you see that icon, the icon I have been given, it's now showing over here. So now also let's just change the title a bit to just to make it looks better. So to change the title, I need to change it from the layout. As you see, it will be over here. So now instead of getting that, export that metadata, instead of title and description, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass my title in a wrapping as an object. So I don't want to pass the description, I'm gonna pass the title, which will be the block app, and just to make that in a little bit good way. As you see, that's our application. So now what we need to actually understand is that this header and initially also this footer, it will be available for all the screen. So we're gonna put it in the layout screen, so it will be available for overall. But instead of putting everything in that layout, which is pretty much for the Next.js configuration, so what I'm gonna do in the app directory, or not in the app, in the source directory, I'm gonna open a components folder, and also I'm gonna use another folder which will be our constants. So now inside a component, I'm gonna create another file which will be RootLayout.jsx and rafce to create that beautiful snippet for React application. As you see, let's hit the save. And if you want to run that similar pattern, rafce or rfce, you need to install one of their extension, which is the React Native snippet. I believe it's somewhere here. It will be, let's just find it, that ES7 plus React Redux. That will head the work for that React Native snippet, and I'm using the pit here to let my work looks better. And also you need to install the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense to let your Tailwind give a head start. So let's go back to our code again. So in the root layout, I'm gonna put it in a very similar pattern how we can actually work through it. So what I'm gonna do, this root layout, I'm gonna pass a children on it, children, and instead of that root layout, I'm gonna pass that children over here. And inside that layout, wherever we are passing the body, what I'm gonna do, instead of this children, I'm gonna not passing that children, I'm gonna just cut it, and then I'm gonna declare my root layout, and I'm gonna pass the children within it. So now if we go over here, okay, maximum call size exceeded, let's just see. Okay, we're gonna fix it in a bit. So what actually we can do to fix that one, let's head back to root layout, and now what we want to do is we just make that const path name. We're gonna get from that use path name, oops, it will be use path name, and this path name we need to import from the React navigation. Let's just import that one. Okay, so now instead of passing that directly in the div, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a root layout inner. So what it const root layout inner, and in that here we're gonna pass whatever the things we just want to pass through, and in also in that root layout inner, it will take that as a children. And now, okay, let's just save it because I want to just remove that error. So instead of passing that div, I'm gonna pass that root layout inner, and here I'm gonna pass that children. Okay, maximum, it will just be go out once we are going to start spinning our all other things, because now it's null, there is nothing to be shown as a children. So first of all, let's work with that our root layout inner. First of all, I need to find it with that panel ID, because we're gonna use that panel to, as you remember, we're going to create that panel. So we need to find the ID to just to make it that to track it, that one. So it will be a panel ID, and for the panel ID we're gonna use that use ID from the React, and we're gonna using all other things. And to actually let it work, we need to make that, because whenever you are going to use that use hook user ID or user state, you need to create your components as that client side. So it will be use client. So now we can use that client side coding, we can use that. Oops, it will not be clients, it will be use client. Okay, so let's head back over here. don't worry about that, the other things. And now what we also gonna do, we're gonna get some more details about that. We're gonna use that ug state to create that expanded and set expanded, and also we're gonna use that open ref. For that we're gonna use that use ref from the React, and also we're gonna use that use reduce motion. And to do that, what we need to do, let's go to npm. We're gonna use that framer motion to use that motion effect. Okay, and let's install that one. Okay, so now we need to actually import 3 things from that framer motion, and one will be that motion, one will be the motion config, and another one will be the use reduced motion. So that's the way we're gonna just implement that our designing pattern. So first of all, below here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take an use effect, and inside that use effect hook, don't worry, I'm just going from the top to bottom because I want to create it in a very good circular way, so you will not just get stuck on it. So I'm gonna take a function, and that function, actually what I'm gonna do, it will just be an on click function which gonna be responsible to just give us an event, and in that event we're gonna just make a set expanded false, and in that way, so that we are actually going to head back through to fix that one. We're gonna just getting that one to be on click, then we're gonna actually target when it's on click, when you need to be like, if you click on that, it will be expand. It will, when you click again click on that icon, it will be not expanded. That's the things we are actually going to create. And also after that function, we need to run through another things, which will be the window.add event listener. We're gonna listen one event, so which will be, and there will be a 2 event actually, and that 2 event, which one will be for that window.added event listener for the click, which will be passed through an on click function, and the return also that whenever we're gonna just we are also going to remove event listener, and also it will gonna pass with that on click. So pretty much that's the functionality we have been created for that one. So here we are done with that, and what we need to do, we need to put an empty braces to just let it be work in a better way. So now after passing everything, we need to return, and what we want to return, we will return a motion config, and inside that motion config, remember we are actually gonna create a transition. So what I am gonna to make that, I'm gonna pass that transition as the value. It will be a should reduce motion. If there is the reduced motion, what it gonna do, and if it's not the reduced motion, how it gonna do. So now if that reduced motion is actually there, I'm gonna put a duration which will be the 0, and if it's not there, it will just be undefined. Okay, so now inside that motion config, I'm gonna pass a header tag to create the header, and inside that header I'm gonna pass a div, and that div, actually what I'm gonna do for that div, I'm gonna put a class name for that. It will be it will be absolute, and left it will be 0, right 0, and also from the top it will be 2 little bit on the top side, and z index it will be I'm gonna give a z of 40, z index 14, and padding top of 14 pixel. And for that div, remember we are actually gonna give a 2 separate bunch of things, which we're gonna declaring the area label for that, which will be like area hidden. Whenever it's expanded, it will be true, otherwise it will be undefined, and we're gonna pass that inert to create, actually as you see, whenever we click, we're getting a dark background. We're gonna create it as passing that props as inert. So that's the one we are going to actually creating right now. So now after giving that, what we need to do, we need to call that our header. So that's so now is the time to create our header. And to create the header, actually we can create it here or we can create in other ways. So what I'm gonna do, instead of creating, because we're gonna mapping through it, we're gonna actually fetch it, because we're gonna monitor it whenever we click or not click. So I'm gonna keep it over in this either where you can put it in a component, because I'm gonna create a lots of component later on. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep that here in this file. So it will be header and okay. Now in the header, I'm gonna take some kind different bunch of props, and inside that props, what I'm gonna take that panel ID. I'm gonna take it that invert by default, which will be false. Then also I'm gonna take the icon. Remember, we have the two icon we're gonna use. So this icon also I'm gonna take as a props. Expanded I'm gonna take, like whenever we click it will expand, like the toggle true and on toggle and toggle reference, I'm gonna take that. So first of all, to begin with, what we need to do, we need to create a container. Okay, so that container we're gonna return with that. So first of all, let's go and create a container. So in the components, I will take another file which will be container.jsx rafce. So now inside our container, what we're gonna keep, that will be a simple basic container. First of all, we need to use a small library which is the CLSX. It's a very good utilities, because like whenever we are active or not active, we need to put that condition. But if we use the CLX, it actually gonna track it under the hood, and it gonna give you that a very good flexibility when you are getting that conditional CSS, which we're gonna use for here. So let's import CLSX from CLSX. Now in that container, we are actually gonna get a bunch of props over here. What we're gonna get, that div as a component. So that component we're gonna pass it will be just a div. We're gonna pass that class name, and also we're gonna take the children as the props. So in the return, instead of that div, I'm gonna pass that component, because we are taking it as a div, and then I'm gonna take a div, and inside that div I'm gonna pass that children. And now what I'm gonna do, I need to pass that class name for it. Okay, so first of all, let's put that class name, and that class name I'm gonna use that CLSX, and now I'm gonna pass that which will be the max width. I'm gonna give it as a 7XL, and MX auto it will be in the middle, and PX it will be 6, and LG in the bigger screen it will be PX of 8. As you may know, in the Tailwind CSS is the mobile first utility services. So every time it will start working, it will take the head start from the mobile devices. So you need to be very careful and think about the mobile devices whenever you are giving that class names. And for that div inside of that container, we're gonna pass that one as that max width of 2XL, MX auto, and the larger devices it will be the max width of none. And after passing, don't forget to pass your class name from the props you are getting. Otherwise, whatever the class name you're gonna pass through the props, it will not work. So now we're getting our component is ready. Sorry, our container is ready. So let's head back to our root layout, and now I'm gonna just take that container. Okay, now inside that container I'm gonna pass all other things. So first of all, in that container, the first thing I'm gonna pass a div, and in that div I'm gonna pass our logo. So first one it will be our logo, and let's just create a logo. Okay, so I'm gonna get that logo.jsx. You can use any logo. I'm just gonna create it from the start, so it's better. I will just use the text as the studio clone. So now what we're gonna have in the logo, first of all, I'm gonna have the two things, which one it will be the CLX and another it will be the link. And now in the logo, I'm gonna get some of the props over here, which will be that I'm gonna take as invert her, and also the class name children, and whatever the props we are going to get it through. So now for that class name, I'm gonna just be shuffled through it to give a little bit a style of classing ahead. So now first of all, I'm gonna pass the class name, and that class name is gonna be black, and then I'm gonna give the condition, and that condition it will render through, like whenever it will be invert there will be a class name, and if it's not invert there will be separate class name. And how it gonna work, as you see, once we click, the same logo is changing the background, like it's changing the color, right? If it's in the white background, the color is black. If it's in the black background, the color is white. That's the fundamental issue we are doing it. So when it's invert, it's gonna be text white. The same thing that's happening here, and it's a hover effect, and it's not an invert. We are giving the other portion. And after giving that one, like after passing that class name, I'm passing an inner portion where you're gonna pass that the props as a children. And now I'm gonna declare if it has a link or not. Like if this one has a href, like if it has a link, what I'm gonna return as inside a link actually, so we can actually link through it. And inside that, I'm gonna pass that inner, I'm gonna passing it through there. And for that link proportion, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass it through the link wherever we are getting, and all the class name, and also in the props. Now in that return portion here, I'm gonna just simply pass an h2 tag for my it will just say my purpose for this build, and also I'm gonna pass that class name and also the props to just work it through. So that's the things, that's my logo is going to be ready. So let's go back to RootLayout, and here inside a link, okay, don't forget to import the link from the next link. I'm gonna pass that logo. Okay, now in the logo, actually instead of self-closing, what I'm gonna do, because we can actually oops, it will be logo, and that one is studio clone. And also for this logo, we're gonna pass another thing, which will be that invert, and it will be invert, and of course it will pass the variable as invert. And of course we need to pass that href for that link, so it will be that href to the home. So whenever we click, it will take us to the home. So let's see what is saying here. Okay, still we are having that error. We're gonna fix it right now. And the problem, I think we can fix that one right now. First of all, let's go back to the layout. As you see, we are here passing that root layout. So what I'm gonna do, instead of root layout, I'm gonna pass it as the layout, and I'm gonna import that layout, the root layout from the layout. Let's save that one. And in the root layout, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just get that header in actual action, so it will be our header. And also we're gonna use that path name restriction, because we actually taking the path name. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass that key as path name. So let's go back. Okay, you just did from React. Okay, so now we are getting another new error. So let's go back to the root layout. So we are using CLI, oops, it will be ENT, it will be use client. Okay, I believe now, as you see, we're getting our logo, so everything is all right. It just happening, it's gonna just contradict with that root layout. By default we are having a root layout here. So now in the header, let's go start working. And now before going back to pass all other things, I'm just go back to header where we are taking it, because remember we're getting a lot of things as the props, so we need to pass those things as the props, right? So what I'm gonna do, just in a simple way, in our header, I'm gonna pass that panel ID as the panel ID I'm gonna take, and also that icon. Remember, we're gonna get an error because I'm just prefacing from my previous code, so we need to get that icon. And to that having that icon, I'm gonna use another one, which will be that React icons. Is one of another good directory for that icons purposes. So let's copy that one and import that. And now it's very easy to get the icons from the React icons. As you see, let's go back to their home pages. In here, actually not that one, I want to go through their React icons. Okay, that's the pages we want to go. Like if we want to get any icon, just type that's the name. As you see, you can get and just copy that, you can get that icon pretty sure. So to use that application, we are actually needing two icons, and the two icons I'm gonna import at the top, and one icon it will be the menu icon, that's and another which will be that close icon. As you see, I believe the error, it will just be gone, it will go for sure. Yeah, so we are having that icon. So now we are passing the panel ID, we are passing that icon, and also we are passing the toggle ref, and also it will be expanded by default. And that on toggling, what will happen, it will be set expanded, it will be that, like, it will just get that true and false. It will toggle, it will false. So that's the same a small purpose, it gonna face it through for that entire things. So now as we are passing that one, because I'm pasting it, it will just let me save my time. So feel free to go slow and get everything read in a proper way. Okay, so now let's head back to our in that header container. So after the logo, what you want, after this logo, we're gonna have another div. And first of all, in the top level of div, let's just give a class name. It will be flex and item center justify between to push it through. And now after that link, I'm gonna take another div, and in that div also I'm gonna give a class name. It will be a flex item center, and the gap in x-axis it will be 8. And now here we're gonna take a button. Remember that button? So you're gonna create a reusable button, and to do that I'm gonna take a separate file which will be button.jsx rafce. So now here we're gonna create the button, and that button, it will be also pretty much the simpler. We created that logo, so we're gonna need two things. One will be the link, and another which will be the CLSX. And for that button also we're gonna take several properties as props. We're gonna take that invert, and also we're gonna take that href. We're gonna take that class name as a props, and also you're gonna take the children. And after that, if we want to pass any props, also we can take that one as in a props. So now what I'm gonna do, the same way we have been done for the logo, I'm gonna pass that class name, and that class name it will be within the CLSX. And now here I'm gonna pass through as a condition. By default it will get through the class name, and it will also go through the default setup. That will be the default button parameter: inline flex, rounded full, padding x-axis and y-axis, text asm, font semi-bold, and transition. It will be the default behavior. But whenever we're gonna get an invert or not an invert, that's the question. Now how we gonna actually show that? So if we have that invert, and if we don't have that invert, what we gonna do? So if we have that invert, like if it's in the black screen, we're gonna have that the color, it will BG will be white, the text it will be neutral like the blackish, and the BG which also will be the little bit blackish. And now if it's not an invert, we're gonna pass that this parameter. And also the similar pattern which we did have been done before. So it's the simplest way. I'm gonna take an inner, and inside that inner I'm gonna take a span tag, and inside that span tag I'm gonna pass that simple children. And don't worry, we're gonna use that button everywhere, so it's a very good, reusable and handy button to use. So now if there is the link available for that, we're gonna also return one link parameter, and inside that link I'm gonna pass that inner. And for the overall link, we're gonna pass that href for the link, we're gonna pass the class name, and also we're gonna pass the props, whatever is available. And now instead of div, let's just pass a button, and inside that button we're gonna pass that inner, and we're gonna pass that class name and props on the button. So now our button is ready to import. So let's head back to the root layout. I'll just close these two things. So here I'm gonna just import that button, and inside I'm gonna pass that contact us, and this button gonna take an href, and that href it gonna take us to contacts, and also in the invert it will take that invert properties. So now I believe we will be able to see the button. As you see, and that invert thing is not coming because we need to get that like this one. We need to create that two things which we're gonna create right now. So after that button, we're gonna take another button, not this button actually, but instead of that button. So now what we're gonna do actually, we're gonna pass an icon, and inside that icon we're gonna pass actually if we just simply pass the icon, let's see, we will see the icon because we can get the icon still. And for that icon, I'm gonna just pass some of the class name. Don't forget to just get through it because there is a lot of CSS we're gonna use. So if I go one by one, it will take a bit of time to go through it. So feel free to just go and learn, just implement that one. Okay, what's wrong? We have been done. Okay, we use CLX, but we didn't implement that one. So let's import CLSX. Okay, so now our button is working pretty smooth. So let's go back to the icon again where we are here in that icon. So now in that button we're gonna pass some of the things, which will be the reference. It will be that toggle reference, and the type, it will be button of course, and on click it will be that on toggle event, it's gonna fire up. And also we're gonna get some of the class name and area expandable things. So let's just pass those things here. So it will get also area expanded to a string, and area controls, it will be the panel ID, whichever the panel ID you are passing, and that class name, it will be responsible to just change the background. If it's not invert, like if it's invert, it will be white, and if it's not invert, it will be the neutral. So that's the pattern we are going to pass. So as you see, if we click, nothing gonna happen till now because we need to set it up some other portion also. So this is pretty much everything to start with our first things. As you see, we have the container and other things. So now we need to create that on clickable event and every other things. So let's go and begin to create that one. And to create that one, we will just head back to where we actually call the header. Remember, we are actually working in the root layout inner. So now after the header, we are passing the header. First of all, we finish that div here. So after that div, we will just create a navigation. Remember, we have some of the button where actually we are getting how we gonna navigate in which button. So we need to create that navigation beforehand. And to get the navigation, so let's head back to in the top again. So that's the root layout inner. There's a lot of things here. Just this, the file, it will contain a lot of things. The other file, it will be the single component. So I'm just keeping it here, otherwise I need to pass lots of props in a different file. So now here I'm gonna get that navigation. So it will be const navigation, and inside that navigation, what I'm gonna pass, I'm gonna just return, and in that return I'm gonna return a nav. So that nav gonna take some of the class name, so I'm gonna give that class name for that nav. It will be that, and that font display, I'm gonna get that font. Just let me get some props because we are going to use our that Mona Sans. So I'm gonna fix it in a way after we finish that things. So now here we're gonna declare actually the navigation row. So also what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make a const navigation row, because here I'm gonna pass that children. So I'm gonna take props as a children. Oops, I need to put that in a curly braces. So now here I'm gonna return a div, and inside, oops, it will be a div, and inside the div I'm gonna pass that container. So now what I'm gonna actually passing through that, so in that div, in the initial level of the div, I'm gonna give some of the class name, which will be that even that margin top will be 0 pixel, and it's more in the medium is going to be the BG neutral of 950. And here in the container, inside that container, I'm gonna passing another that div, and inside that div I'm gonna pass the children. And also this one, remember how many we are using that grid pattern of 2. So as you see, one side, two sides, so it's getting that 2 gridding pattern for that. So let's get class name of that grid, and grid calls, it will be 2. So git calls of 2, but initially it will be git calls of 1 actually. Yes, git calls of 1. So whenever it will get that smaller screen, it will be git calls of 2. Okay, so that's the pattern we are going to follow. And now inside that navigation, remember we are taking that so that's the navigation row actually. So now we are passing another variable which gonna contain that navigation item. So let's const navigation, it will be item, and in the item we're gonna pass other things, and this item gonna take 2 things. It's gonna take that href, like whenever we click which page it will take us, and also it's gonna take us the children. So first of all, instead of writing from the core, because it's the simple thing we're gonna pass, that's the class name. So this class name will be responsible to create that effect and other properties. So feel free to follow all the class name properly and just give a head track. It's a simple class name from the Tailwind CSS. So feel free to just go and try to have a bit of understanding on that. I believe you are familiar with the Tailwind CSS now pretty much, because if you're following my channel regularly. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get that a navigation row, and inside that navigation row I'm gonna pass that as a navigation item. So the navigation item, first one, it will be that our work, and the second one, it will be it will be about us. And also we need to pass that href. So first one href, it will be work, and the second one href, it will be about. So that simple pattern, because we're gonna have a 4 setup. So now here that gonna be take us as the process and the block. So just head back the save. So now our navigation actually ready. So now we can use that navigation, and that navigation we're gonna use after that header, remember here. So let's get that navigation. So now we are having that navigation, and I believe still nothing will happen because we need to create that container of what actually we are going to show. So now below that navigation, remember we have some more properties. Don't worry about that, everything gonna pop up in a bit. I'm gonna just give it to you, just or actually we can do it also right now. And by the way, I believe I missed something, because remember we are actually having that header, so which is gonna passing out from that div. So this is the actual header we're gonna pass as the forward div. So now instead of getting that navigation, because we're gonna call it in a way, first of all, before getting that one, we're gonna take need to take a motion.div. So now it will be, sorry for that misunderstanding on it, because I'm just passing on that way. So now we actually need to get that layout portion. Remember, like on saver, we're gonna click that, how it gonna to show us. And to do that, inside that div, we're gonna call all other things. So first of all, we need to create that portion. First this layout, then we're gonna pass that all the other things. So first of all, for that motion div, we just need to pass that in a layout. So that will be the actual layout, and also we need to pass that the panel ID, and style we just giving that expanded, then how it will be auto, otherwise it will be 5 rem, and we're getting that class name and also the area label and other things we are passing on it. So now after inside that motion div, we need to pass another motion div. Remember, inside that motion, it will also work with other motion. So now here that div also it will take us as a layout, and now it will be the class name that neutral of 800, and now inside that I'm gonna pass a div, and inside that div I'm gonna pass that header again. Remember the header we have been given beforehand. So this entire header we're gonna just pass it here again, and that div I'm gonna also go and give some of the class name for that, which gonna pass it through that navref, and also it will get that some different class name. So if I come over here and if we click, as you see, now we are getting that actual thing. So that is the basic structural ways. It's just I lost the track. So now we are having that effect. So now let's go and pouring the other things. First of all, after that header portion, so that header, it will be inside the div. Now actually we can pass that navigation portion, so it will be navigation. So I believe, okay, so here we're gonna take the navigation. Still we can see the navigation because the navigation portion should come, and I believe we are having some issue. Let's go to the navigation portion, and instead of declaring as a const, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just declare as a function. So it will be that function, and all other things it will be just as it before. So what I'm gonna do actually, okay, that's one function, and then we're gonna have another function. It's actually not a big deal, sometimes it just giving that error. So let's pull back through. Okay, or I believe it's not actually, that's the issue. So what I'm gonna do, I think I find that's the problem. So it's actually not the problem with the function, so you can keep the way you want. So the problem is here, because see, we are passing the link, but that link we need to make it as return, so that it gonna return something. Oops, yeah, we need to return something on that. Only then we're gonna find that something is returnable. We are not returning anything. So now as you see, we have work, hour, and every other thing. If we click in about, we are having that going back to that about pages. So we need to create the pages later on. So now we have that about portion. So after the about portion, we have some other portion also, which gonna have be our offices and the follow us button. And to do that, let's go back down of the navigation. So that's our navigation finish over here. So after the navigation, we will create that other part. So here I'm gonna take another div, and inside that div I'm gonna popping up my class name, where I'm gonna make it as a relative and giving that background and other, making some positioning of that absolute and other things. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wrap everything inside the container. Inside that container, I'm gonna pass a div. Inside that div, I'm gonna pass another div, and then I'm gonna pass an h2, which gonna represent that our offices. And for that div, for the offices later, I'm gonna just pass that class name. As you see, that offices is, oops, it's just click. So the offices is just here. So now what I want to do, I want to pass that offices address, and to do that, I'm gonna take another components, which will be offices.jsx rfce. Now here I'm gonna pass all the offices details. So in the offices, I'm gonna also get that import clsx, and now here I'm gonna pass two variables. One will be the office, another will be the offices. And the one office, it will be just a function which actually gonna return that office. It will be the name as a children, and also the invert, it by default it gonna be false. That's for the naming and other styling also going on with there. And now here in the offices, I'm gonna just take it as a props, the invert and the props. So now instead of passing the div, what I'm gonna pass an unordered list and then the list item. So inside that list item, I'm gonna pass that office, the one I'm just taking it in the top. So first of all, in that UL, I'm gonna give it as a role, which would gonna be list, and also I'm gonna just pass any of the props. If I want to pass it, gonna also take, so the props. And for the office, first of all, I'm gonna get is a name, which will be name, it will be, oops, it will be USA. and also I'm gonna pass that invert value, which will be invert. And now after that offices inside here, first of all I'm gonna passing that name, and the second one I'm gonna pass that address, so it will be on baymark, and then I'm gonna give that as a BR, like the self-closing bracket, and then I'm gonna pass that address, which will be Newtown City of Las Vegas. And there I'm gonna pass another address. So in the list item, let's just pouring that's the two address I'm passing on the offices. So let's back to in our root layout. So after that h2 tag, I'm gonna pass that offices. Now here in the offices, what I'm gonna do, first of all, it's gonna be invert, and also in the class name I'm gonna pass that first of all it will be margin top of 6, and then it's gonna be grid. So grid calls of 1, it will be by default, and the gap it will be 8, and now SM grid calls of 2. So let's the save. As you see, we are having this 2, so that's the 2. We're gonna create that setup later on. So that's our offices. As you see, that's the similar of that. So now in the top level, it looks little bit crampy. It's because in the, I think this level we have a div. So now here we just need to pass some of the class name to let it looks better. So now that looks marvelous. So as you see, and that effect is pretty cool. So now let's pass the another one, which gonna be our social media. So that's the div which is responsible for the offices, and after that div we're gonna pass another div and also another h2 tag, which will be follow us. So now this h2 tag also gonna be follow the similar pattern of the previous, and that one, that top level of the div, we're gonna give a border left. So now we are having that follow us. So after the follow us, we need to get that icon, and to create that icon, because we're gonna make it as a reusable component, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a social media .jsx rafce. So now inside that social media, we're gonna combine all the other properties you want. First of all, we're gonna import that our link and CLX, and the icon we are going to use, that Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just create an array, which will be it will be that, or I'm gonna also later on I'm gonna use that, or better to make it in a simple way, social media profiles. And that profiles, it gonna be an array of object. First one, it gonna be taking 3 things. First of all, it gonna take the title, it gonna take the href, it will be YouTube. Okay, it's gonna take the title and the reference, the href for that, the link, and then it's gonna take the button. So I have the 5 title, icon, and the href. So in the bottom here, what I'm gonna do as a props, I'm gonna pass that the class name, and also it's gonna take that invert, and by default it will be as false. Okay, so now here instead of the div, I'm gonna pass that unordered list, and for that one I'm gonna set up the role, a role, and the class name. So now from that social media profiles, I'm gonna map through it, and inside there, it will be profile, and now here I'm gonna return that list item, and inside that list I'm gonna just simply pass that as a link. So here it will be profile dot icon. We are just going to pass the icon. So now the list, I'm gonna pass that. Oops, it will be key. The key value, it will be, actually is a pretty much bigger name. I'm just gonna pass that item. So it will be that item dot icon and item dot title, the different title. And for the the link one, we're going to pass that href, which will be href, it will be that item dot href, and also area label will be the item dot title, and we're getting that CLSX to giving this style. And for that item dot icon, we're gonna give that class name, which gonna height, it will be 6, and width, it will be 6, fill, it will be current. So now our social media icon is ready. So in our root layout, what we are going to do, after that h2 tag, I'm gonna get that social media. So now I believe it will be available. Okay. We still cannot see that one. Okay, so just give a class name. Oops, it will be margin top of 6, and we are missing another one. We need to make it as invert, so it gonna show us in that screen. Now if I click, you're gonna see the link is working. It's just directing to my YouTube channel. Feel free to go through all the videos. There is a lot of things you can learn, and if you feel helpful, then just share it with your friends. So let's go back to our builds. So this things is working pretty much fine, and if we just make it in the smaller screen, change the sizes of it. Oops. Okay, as you see, that's working pretty much fine. So now what I'm gonna do, that font is actually not the font we are looking through it. So pretty much that one is for to create that, or again we have some other portion, because as you see we have some text data over here, but we cannot see that because we didn't pass anything as the children. So remember, we are inside the root layout, we are just creating the header. So after the header, we need to pass the children to view all other properties. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take another motion div, and inside that motion div, I'm gonna take another motion div. So over here, I'm gonna take a main class, and in the main, I'm gonna pass that children. So now once I pass the children, as you see, I can see the children available over here, but it's going not the way I supposed to see that one. So what I'm gonna do, in the top level of the div, the top one, that motion div, I'm gonna give it as a layout, and also I'm gonna pass that as a border left radius and border bottom radius as a style component to create that border strategy. Okay, so after having that, in the bottom layout, like in that motion, also I'm gonna pass it as a layout and giving a class name to make it in a good way, and the padding top 9 to see now is getting in the actual positioning. And now for the main, what I'm gonna do, just go give some class name for the main with full, and it will be the flex auto. So let's head back to our actual layout. So now here in the layout on the body, first of all, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just get rid of this one. I'm not gonna use that enter font from that Next.js. So in the body, I'm gonna give that class name, which will be the flex, min height, it will be full, and also it will be flex in column position. Oops, let's go back. And also in that HTML in the top level, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just pass some of the class name, which gonna help us to hit back with the Tailwind CSS. As you see, height full, and I'm gonna give a VG of neutral, because as you see, this one actually we are getting from here, we are getting that style, but because of the background we cannot fetch the style. So whenever we change the background, now that style is taking, because it's getting the neutral and other properties. As you see, now it looks better. Okay, there is something we are missing. It's not giving actual the way it's supposed to be. We're gonna fix it in a way. So first of all, this is the layout we are passing and everything is working pretty much fine. Let's head back to the layout. I believe in the main we are having the main. Okay, we are passing the layout. Okay, yep. So now we will change the font style, and to change the font style, what we need to do, we need to target that font to let the Tailwind CSS to style working with that. And to do that, first of all, what I'm gonna do, in that app directory, I'm gonna take another file which will be base.css. Okay, now in the base.css, I'm gonna pass that font family. So it will be that Tailwind base. Okay, and now I'm gonna declare that font face, and that font face I'm gonna pass that the variable for that font family and other things. So the font family, font weight and other things. Now I need to pass the source. So the source, it will be that fonts, and that will be the font file. We're gonna pass that. So to let it to work with that, I'm gonna pass that inside that global.css. Remember, we are importing the base instead of the Tailwind base. I'm gonna just import it will be not the URL, it will be the base.css, and still it will not work with that because we need to configure that one in our Tailwind CSS. And to configure it, first of all, I'm gonna pass two set of variable. Remember, we use that border radius, and also we are going to use that font family. These two things I'm gonna use from that Tailwind CSS. First one, it will be the border radius, which will be the 4XL and other things. Then we're gonna use that font family, which will be the, remember that is actually not getting from there, because first of all we need to set that parameter from the default font. Okay, so now we're gonna go through with the default font from the Tailwind CSS, and then we're gonna pass that one as that separate font family. Okay, so let's just reload. Okay, there is some error, and to go out with that error, I believe what you need to do, npm run dev, just rerun the application, and I believe it will work just fine. Because sometimes whenever you are actually accessing the config file, it's better to reload, because so many things is stuck in the caching data, so that it's gonna give us that error. Okay, now that looks fine. Let's just give it a time to load. Okay, now as you see, if we go back to the font details, as you see, we have that Mona Sans is reloaded, so our font is working fine. And also this one, it gonna go on, so you're gonna adding the other page. So now we are having that header, so it's time to create the footer. And remember, we're gonna create the same way the footer in that RootLayout, because we want it to access anywhere, and that's gonna be happen after that main file. So our footer, it gonna be here. So now let's go in the components and create another file. It will be footer.jsx rfce. So now that's the where we're gonna create the footer. And first of all, let's see what we're gonna have inside our footer. And if we just having a visualization, okay, I think something wrong with my network. Okay, that's the footer. So in the footer, we have the entire section here. So now that's the one compartment where we have that our workflow company and the connect, and then we have one of the newsletter portion, and we have that bottom footer where we are actually getting all other things. So this the things we need to create. So let's go from the beginning. We will create this portion, and to create that, first let's head back to footer. Okay, that's the footer. And instead of the div, I'm gonna pass that inside a container, and inside that container, and that container I'm gonna use as footer. And also I'm gonna give that class name, which it gonna be empty. It will be 24, the margin top. You can give as the way you like, depends on your choice. And the width, it will be take full, and sm, it will be empty of 32, and lg, it will be empty of 40. That's a margin top. So now what I want to do, actually, I'm gonna create another fade in. Like if we just go with that, it's gonna give us a fade in direction, like a motion over here. And to create that fade in, I'm gonna take a file which will be fadein.js. Let's just name it as fadein.jsx, RAFCE. So now inside that fade in file, I'm gonna create that fade in and fading stagger, which gonna give us responsible for that viewport. So first of all, I'm gonna put some 4 parameter. One, I'm gonna make it as a use client, because we're gonna use that create context and use context from the React. And I'm gonna create also the motion and use reduce motion. And for that fade in stagger context, I'm gonna create it with that create context. By default it's gonna be false, and the viewport it will be on true, and margin it will be just minus 200 pixel. So now instead of passing anything by default, or you can keep it as default, or let's just pass it as default. So I'm gonna pass that as not in the bracket. I'm gonna pass any props if we just give it over here. And now here I'm gonna just put 2 things. It will be const should reduced motion, and it gonna use that use reduced motion. And inside that I'm just pass that parameter for that should reduce motion. And another one is in stagger group, and here I'm gonna use that use context, and that one I'm gonna pass that fade stagger context, which we actually passing at the top. So now instead of making that normal div, I'm gonna take that as a motion div, and inside, or instead of that, I'm gonna just pass it as a self-closing motion div. And now let's pass that variance, and that variance gonna be responsible to give us the actual motioning effect. First of all, am I missing something? So for the variance, first it's gonna be give us a hidden variant, and that hidden variant we're gonna pass that as opacity. It will be a 0, and and y it gonna pass that should reduce motion. If that should reduce motion there, it will be 0, otherwise it gonna give us a 24. And for that another one which gonna create that, after that we're gonna pass another variable which is gonna be visible, and for that visibility the opacity it will be 1, and y it will be 0. So whatever the style is happening, whenever it's visible, it's gonna be passing through it. So now after that we need to pass that transition, and that transition gonna work to give us the duration and other things. For the duration it's gonna be 0.5 seconds, so the 5 milliseconds. And now what we're gonna pass, that same like the props we are passing. So we're gonna pass that is in stagger group. So if it's in stagger group, then we're gonna pass something. If it's not, then we're gonna pass something. So if it's in stagger group, we just gonna pass an empty braces, and if it's not, we're gonna pass few other things. So it will be initial, we're gonna make it as hidden. The initial value it will be hidden, and then while in view we're gonna pass another properties. It will be visible, and then we're gonna pass that viewport, the one we are sharing beforehand. And of course don't forget to pass that the props, whatever the props we are going to trigger through. So this is the one, the actually fade in, and later on we're gonna also use that fade in stagger. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just make that 2 things together, export cons fade in stagger. So that's the one also we're gonna create. So let's head back with that, and here I'm gonna take that props as faster, and that faster by default it's gonna be false. And also I'm gonna take whatever the props it's gonna to utilize with that. So now here from that function, I'm gonna return that value. So that value it will be fade stagger context, dot provider. So now we can actually access that Ferris tagger provider. Remember the value we are having for that value, it gonna be true. And also we're gonna pass a self-closing motion div. And now in that motion div we're gonna pass that few things. So it's gonna be initially it's gonna be hidden, while in view it will be visible, viewport it will be the viewport, and transition it's gonna be the simple transition gonna be popping up. So now in the root layout, not in the root layout actually, we are heading back to our footer. So now inside that container, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take that fade in. So now inside that fade in, I'm gonna take a div. Inside that div, first one it will be, we're gonna create that newsletter portion. So in the top level of here, I'm gonna create that newsletter. So it will be const, it will be news letter from. So let's back through it, and here return, I'm gonna return a from. Okay, oops, there will be no action with that from. Okay, now here in that from, I'm gonna pass an h2 tag, which gonna contain actually that h2 and h other tags. I'm gonna just popping up with that. So it's gonna get as an h2 tag, which sign up for our newsletter, another for the subscribe to get the latest designs and others. And for that from tag, I'm gonna give a class name with that, and that class name it will be max width of semi small screen. So let's go over here. We cannot see the footer because we didn't import it here yet. So here we're gonna get the footer. So now we're gonna see something from the footer if it's available. I believe it still is not available. Yeah, it's because we are just getting the newsletter, but we are not passing that newsletter here. So what I'm gonna do, okay, actually we can do two things. First we can create the navigation, the footer navigation, then we can create the newsletter. Okay, keep the newsletter whatever we are here. So now we're gonna actually create that footer navigation. To get that navigation button, I'm talking about this portion. This the portion is important one. So let's open that. It will be footer navigation.jsx rfce. So now in that footer navigation, we are going to get that link. And also what I'm gonna do, instead of that div, I'm gonna take a nav, and then I'm gonna take an UL, and in that UL I'm gonna pass that role of that unordered list and other setup of things. So now here actually we can navigate through that, this all the things we're gonna receive as an array. And to create that array, let's go back to the constants, and here I'm gonna take a file which will be index.jsx. And now in that index.jsx, we are going to combine through all of that. First of all, remember, because we can get that stagger tag like the name of there, so, and also the link we can actually take. And to access that one, what we need to do, remember, I believe we are having that in our social media. So now instead of just to make const, we're gonna make that export also, so we can access that social media profiles. So now we can import social media profiles, and now also I'm gonna make that const navigation, and that navigation it gonna pass through an array, and it will be a array of 3 objects. The first one it gonna take us the title as work, and the links it gonna give us, that's the title. The first one, title, company, and the connect, that's the subtitle over here. So then we're gonna get that title, other things, and the same way the company and the links about that, and for the connect and the social media profiles, I think it will be that one, social media profiles, the small one. I think we make just the similar name. So now in the footer, what I'm gonna do, not the footer actually, the footer navigation, oops, it will be here in that footer navigation. So now here we can just get that navigation from the constants, and I'm gonna get that map through it. and let's take the item, and what we are actually going to return as the li, and the key is gonna be item dot title. So now I'm gonna take a div, and inside the div I'm gonna pass the title actually, so item dot title, and that title, remember, so whenever you are seeing that font display, that font actually we are declaring here display, that Mona Sans and other, also the Sans by the default fonts. So we are passing that title. Let's save it, and in the footer what actually we can do, we can just in that div, okay, I'm gonna take that footer navigation, okay, just to see if we actually find something or not, and still nothing is appearing. It should appear something, the title and others. Okay, let's head back to the footer navigation. Okay, item dot title, okay, and also for that footer, okay, in the div, okay, nothing is appearing. Okay, I think we are missing something. Let's go to the footer navigation again. So that's the title we are getting and the div section. And now what we're gonna take after the div, we're gonna take another UL, and also again we're gonna pass it as a role and others. Okay, so now inside that one, remember we are getting a particular item, and that item also we can make that link. So item dot links and dot map. So here it's gonna take the particular link with that. Okay, so now I'm gonna take another list item. Okay, and that list item it's gonna take that link dot title, and also for the key what we want to pass actually, it will be link dot it will be the key link dot href. And for the class name, or instead of that actual the li, it will be actually link dot title to capture with that, and also we can pass that href with that wrapping through. So for that href it will be link dot href. Okay, so that's the things we can pass. And for that link portion we also can pass some of the class name for it. Okay, that will be the class name for that link. And for that list item, the empty, it will be 4. Okay, okay, let's see what we are passing. Href, we are passing that href link dot title. Okay, what's the error we are having? Item dot links dot map. Okay, it is not passing, that's the links we are giving. Okay, item dot links dot map. Okay, if we go back here, the error is coming, it should not come. Let's go back to the index. I believe we are missing something here because we are okay, that's the one we are missing. So let's go back to index. We need to pass that one as the variable because we are pushing that one in that social media profiles. Just change the name if you are facing that issue again. So let's head back here, and if we save, as you see we are having that things. Okay, So now we can see that whenever initial loading, it will not be there because we are setting up kind of a margin top and fading stagger. That's a fade in portion, so it's not actually visible at the beginning. You can see it later on. Also, we are pouring the other details. So we have that our footer navigation, and after that footer navigation, we have another portion. It will be the newsletter. So in the top at the newsletter, we are passing the two things. After that, we're gonna pass that another div, and inside that div we're gonna pass that input, and in the input we're gonna create some of the simple input distribution, which gonna take us as we're gonna give a type of email placeholder. It will be the email addresses, autocomplete, it will be for the email, area label the email addresses, and that CSS. I'm not wasting much of time for explaining the CSS. You can just feel free to type, it will work just fine. I have been tested, so you can test it as well. So now this will be that input field, and you cannot see it because we need to pass that newsletter. So now I'm gonna take a div. Inside the div I'm gonna pass that let's just newsletter form. Okay, now you see, so that's the styling and design we have been created. So now we are having that newsletter form, and after that newsletter form, actually we are also going to use one SVG, and that SVG, it will be for that arrow icon. You feel free if you want to use the icon, but also you can use that SVG. So it will be that name, it will be the arrow icon, and that arrow icon I'm gonna take that props. If we want to pass any props with there, it's just keeping an optional, and in return I'm gonna just pass an SVG. So it will be just a simple arrow icon which we are going to return. So that's the simple thing, or you can go through to search how to create SVG for a React application. So now after that div, it's like after the input button is done. So after the input, I'm gonna take another div, and then I'm gonna pass one button, which and in that button I'm gonna pass that arrow icon, and that arrow icon, remember, we can pass that prop. So we give a class name which gonna be width of 4. Okay, so okay, still we can see actually nothing because we need to wrap things up to make it flexible to see. So first of all, in the top level of the div, what I'm gonna do, because I need to make it as an absolute div, and also I'm gonna make it the inside y1, right one, flex and justify and also for that button, the type, it will be submit, area label, it will be submit, and simple class name to let it looks better. So if we go over here, that's the contact button, but it's not looks good because we make it as absolute. But what we need to do in the top level, we just need to make it as a relative, and empty it will be 6. Once you do that, you see that things is pouring. So now it looks pretty fantastic. Okay, so that things is working just fine. And by the way, that's our setup is there, the one we are passing as the prop. So now our footer is actually finished, but it's not looks the way it's supposed to be. As you see, it should stagger in taking the proportion. So to do that, what I am gonna do, I believe we are messing some of the class name somewhere. Okay, that's the class name we are giving, empty24, and remember where we are taking in the root layout, we are taking the footer. Let's go back to the root layout. Okay, that should work just fine. Okay, let's just head back to the footer. So also we need to pass the other portion. So that's the div, the first and a second div we are finishing. So after end of this div, I'm gonna pass another div. So let's get another div, and inside that div I'm gonna pass that link, and in that link I'm gonna pass that logo. Okay, oops, logo. Okay, so now as you see, oops, not here actually, it should be okay. Link is not defined, so we need to import the link from the next link. So now in that link we're gonna give that ref, which will be taking us the home, and also we will just pass that area label as home. And for the top level of there, we are gonna just make that MB20 and M margin top of 24, just giving a simple pattern of that ideas. Now as you see, that's the one we are actually creating. So in the logo, actually we will not see the logo because remember we didn't create that logo in that way. So let's just make that logo. Studio clone, and you can see, we can see the logo right here. And now the logo is done. So after that logo, I'm just gonna get one p tag, which gonna contain with that studio agency, and just passing the year, which the year is be available. So that's the things, just simple things. And now in that div, actually justify between is available, but why is not taking that? It's because we need to give that with a full. Okay, still not requiring with that. Okay. Oops, that link, it will be in for the logo only. Yeah, now it's okay. Even we are not giving the weight, it will work just fine. And also this portion should we are missing something for that portion, and that one is for that newsletter, that newsletter form. So you need to give that flex, and LG it will be justify and. So now as you see, our header and footer looks so perfect. So now it's time to create our other portion. So let's head back to create those things. So first thing first, we're gonna create this simple like a banner like a status. So to create this portion, let's close those things. And now this the pages we are going to work on. So first of all, in that pages inside the main, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just pass that one as the text as black, so that we can see the text wherever we are reading. By default it will be the black color. As you see, this is our text. So now instead of keeping here, I'm gonna keep everything inside that container. So inside that container, I'm gonna take also that fade in. And now what I am gonna do, I'm gonna pass that two things, which will be that one, the h1 tag, which gonna responsible for that make your online pages in reality, and we are a group of developers and other things. As you see, it just looking that is crashing all together. So what I'm gonna do, in the container below, we are going to give some class name. It will be empty margin top of 24. And whenever it will hit in empty like the smaller screen, it will be 32 for that margin top. So now you see that looks pretty better. And now in the fade in portion, I'm gonna give a class name, and that class name, it will contain that max width of 3 pixel. Oops, it will be pixel. Okay, now you see that looks fine. And even if you just reload, as you see how it gonna just giving a fading effect to come up, and also the other portion. So this looks pretty cool. So it's time to create, let's just go through to create all the pages, so that we can just, whenever we click, we can go through that particular pages, and then we're gonna implement the data. And to create the pages is very simple. Just you need to head back to the app directory. Even you are in the not source folder, go to the app directory and you just create a folder. Like I want to create a app/work. I just need to create a folder which will be work. Then what I need to do to create the page inside that work, so take a new file which will be page.jsx. If you're using tsx or others, just put that same extension. Now rafce, so that one, now you can give any of the name here. It will not conflict with the directory, because by default it gonna get through that name to get the directory. So if we go back to our work, as you see, is getting the work here available. And to create, like, we will create a section page throughout all the important things, so like a page intro, so that we can pass an intro to all over the pages. And to create that one, let's go in our components. So it will be that page intro.jsx rfce. So now that page intro, it will be responsible to create other things. First of all, it gonna take some of the properties. What it going to be, take the eyebrow, title, children, centered, who should be by default, it will be false. So in return, what I'm gonna return is as a container. Oops, it will be container. So we will return the container, and inside that container we're gonna return the fade-in portion. So now inside that container, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass that simple class name using that CLSX. Let's import that one also. Okay, so now what I'm doing, I'm passing that as a class name from the CLX for the container, the simple class name, and if it's center, how it text gonna be center and other things. So now in the fade-in, I'm gonna take one h1 tag. So the top one, it will be h1 tag. In the span tag, I'm gonna pass that eyebrow. First of all, I'm gonna just give you a description what I'm gonna create. That will be actually give you a head start. So let's head back to like the work page. So now here, what you're gonna see actually, that our work, which is gonna be coming up with that eyebrow, then that proven solution, and then the description. That's the simple pattern we're gonna adopt for every single pages. As you just go toggle through the other, even you go to the contact, as you see, those the similar pattern of the things we are going to create right now, and it will be very handy if we are going to have it. So just let's head back to our here. So in the after, also for that eyebrow, I'm gonna just go and give some class name for it. Feel free to give any name you want. And after that span tag, I'm gonna just give another span tag, and that one we gonna be for oops, it will be just put a dash, and that one it will be just for screen reader only. And after that, this span, I'm gonna pass another span, and that span gonna contain the actual things, which will be our title. And for that span tag, I'm gonna also pass some of the class name to give it the max width and font and other properties. So this will be passing that h1 tag, and then I'm gonna give another div, and that div will responsible to pass all over the children we are going to pass through it. And for that children also, I'm gonna give some class name which gonna come up with that CLSX, and for that it will be margin top, it will be 6, and max width it will be 3 axle, and text it will be axle, and also text it will be neutral of 600. And if it's centered, oops, it will I believe we need to go out of it. Yes, if it's centered, and it will be text center, or not the center, it will be like MX Auto to keep everything in the middle. So now that's actually the pages intro we are going to use. So let's go and head back to our workload, so where we are keeping everything. So first of all, in the beginning, I'm gonna keep an empty basis, and inside that empty basis, I'm gonna pass that page intro, and I'm gonna import it from there. And now here, what I am gonna actually pass eyebrow, and that eyebrow it will contain with that our work. And also one more thing we need to pass, we need to pass the title, and that title it will be that proven solutions, that's a similar pattern of title for that for real world problems. So now if we go back here, as you see, proven solutions for real world problems. And now also I will pass another properties like a p tag. Remember that we can pass any children we want. So now we are having our that workflow. Okay, so now after the work, let's go back to create the post like the about us. And to create the about us, first of all, as you see, if we go to we are getting a 404 error. If the pages is not found, we are getting that error. And to not getting that error, we want to create actually a page. And to create a 404 page in that Next.js app directory, we need to get a file called name not found.jsx. Extension, it will be the similar, the one you are using. The page name, it will be the not found page. So rafce, you can give any name you want. I'm just putting it a similar with that not found. Okay, so in that not found page, what I want to take is that I'm gonna take it as, I'm gonna return, and I'm gonna return that container and also fade in. Now inside that fade in, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just popping up, like I'm gonna getting some text with the design, which will return that one. It will be the 404 page and the page not found, and sorry, we could not found. As you see, that's the pages is there. But also we will create another link portion where actually we can take the people to head back to the home page or whatever page we want to redirect. So it will be the, I want to just keep it to the, go to the home page. So now, and to make these things to look it work, I'm gonna just pass that the link which gonna follow through to that home page. Like if we click go to home page, it will take us to the home page. So let's go to about us, and again we're gonna get hit back with that 404. So now let's just keep that one looks like better, and to do that, give a class name on that, which will be flex. Height, it will be a full, and item, it will be center. Padding top, just give it a 20, and sm, smaller skin padding top, it will be 24, and lg padding top, it will be 28. Just see how it looks. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, fine. And now for the fading also, for the fading, because everything inside that fading, so I'm gonna give that class name, which will be flex call, and I'm gonna just make it that item center. So it will, everything, it will be center. If you want to keep the gap, you can keep the gap as you want, doesn't matter, you can keep it. So, and also instead of 28, I'm gonna make it as 32, just because it's gonna popping up through a bit better experience with that. So now we are creating that 404 page. So now let's close that 404 page. So now what do you want to create? We want to create about, remember, so it will be the about folder, and here it's gonna be page.jsx rafce. So now it will be about page. So now inside that about page, remember, pretty much the similar pattern we're gonna do it here also. So we're gonna return, and inside that return, first of all, I'm gonna pass that page intro. That's the initial thing. Later on, we're gonna add whatever the things we want to add. So first we need to pass that eyebrow and title. You can keep a subtitle and other things the way you want to make it looks like. And then I'm gonna pass some of the text to make it looks better. So now as you see, we're getting that our about things. So that looks good. So now let's go to our process section, and also to create that, we're gonna just go to that process, and it will be JSX rafce process page. So now in the process page, the similar way, you can go through it, but it looks pretty cool once you are keeping in that way. So now you can have one page intro for every single pages, and to that one, the process, we're gonna put how we work, and then we are going to give an ptech. So that's the process. Okay, and after the process we have the block. So let's create the block. Oops, that's my bad. It will be new. Okay, sorry, it will be new folder. So block, and also it will be another we need to create for that contact. So now for that block, client.jsx blog page, and for the blog page I'm gonna pass that pattern. Oops, I'm gonna take one empty braces. I'm gonna pass that. Let's import the intro, so that will be for the blog page. And remember, we are gonna have one contact page. Still we didn't create any contact pages till yet, so head back to the contact, FCE contact page. So now in the contact page, I believe we're gonna having that same page intro. So okay, now okay, so let's head back to the main page. So now we're gonna create all other things, and the first one, we're gonna create that client portion. If you are following my channel, I already created in one of the previous video, but today I'm just gonna go with in a just a simple pattern to create that one. And to do that, let's head back to in our main file. So that's the root file. So I'm gonna close others, just keeping that one here. So in the components, I'm gonna take another file name. Oops, it will be clients.jsx RAFCE. So here we are going to keep the client properties and other things. And to create the client, actually what I have been said before, I have all the images here. So I'm just gonna import all the images, whatever images I'm needing here. So let's import that images. So I'm gonna use that logo, bird path and other things. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna declare as the clients for that const client. So that will be the client to declare all the images. So now I can map through the images. And to mapping is pretty much simple. So what I'm gonna do over here, oops, I'm gonna take a div, of course, and inside that div I'm gonna pass that container. Okay, so it will be container. Now to that div, because it will be the background, it will be a little bit black, so the neutral I'm gonna use. Okay, so that's the one I'm gonna pass. So after that container is done, I'm gonna pass that clients. So let's head back to our actual website. So here we will see that, as you see, that's already appeared. So now we need to get the client, and to do that we need to mapping through it. First of all, inside that container, I'm gonna make that fade in. Okay, and in that fade in I'm gonna pass two things. One, it will be for that h2 tag, and that h2 tag will contain we have work with hundreds of people. So like it will be the simple kind of proportion for that one h2 tag. And oops, let's just get me that h2, and now okay, so just giving some of the class name to look is better. As you see, that's the one we are just now created. So now also in the fade in, I'm just gonna pass some class name. It will be like flex and item center gap. Oops, it will be gap in x-axis, it will be 8. And why we are giving that, because we want to create a line, and that line we're gonna create it in a self-closing div. Oops, let's pass some class name for it. It will be height, it will be just be on pixel, and flex it will be auto, and also bg neutral of 800. So you're gonna see a line over here. If I just giving that one as 200, you can see it properly. That's the line. So okay, so now what I'm gonna do after that fading, now is the time to use that fade-in stagger. Remember, we created one fade-in stagger. So now here we're gonna pass the value as faster. I want to load it as a faster. So now I want to pass an UL, and inside that unordered list I want to map to the clients. Remember the clients we are passing with that logo and the title. So clients.map, and what I want to map is that I'm gonna take that client and also take that logo. Remember, that's the client and logo we are giving here. So that's the two things I want to take from there. So now after that, okay, so now I want to pass a list item, and then let's take that fade in again, and inside that fading I'm gonna pass an image which I'm gonna import from the next image, and inside that image I'm gonna give the source which will be the logo, and also alternative which I'm gonna pass that as the client. And then I don't want it that Next.js to optimize that one, so I'll just pass it as unoptimized, and I'm gonna give that key which will be my client. So now after giving that, as you see, all the client images is available. So in that unordered list I'm gonna pass that as a row of list, and also I'm gonna pass that class name which will be the empty margin top of 10, and then I'm gonna make it as a grid, and by default it will be grid columns of 2, and the gap in x-axis it will be 8, and gap in y-axis it will be 10, and also whenever it gonna hit in LG screen I'm gonna give a grid calls of 4, so it will looks much more better. So now as you see, that looks perfect. So if I just making a hot reload, as you see, that's giving me effect, and also this giving me a perfect effect. So now there is another portion which is going to be that harnessing the technology, because it gonna be with that case study which we gonna popping up later on, because we will fetch the data for that portion. We will create an API, Nextjs API, then we're gonna create it, and also for the blog, this two part it gonna be later on, and also one part, because in the contact validation and other things we're gonna keep it in a separate video, so that will be compartmentally by 3 part of videos. So now we're gonna create this portion which will be our testimonial, and to create that testimonial, close that, we're gonna take another file which will be testimonials testimonials.jsx rafce. So now what it gonna be there in the testimonial? So in the testimonial I'm gonna take some of the children from some of the props. One props it will be that children, client, and class name. That's the things we're gonna take. So in return I'm gonna take that div, and that div also we're gonna pass some of the class name. Okay, now we will need another portion which we are going to use as the grid pattern. .jsx, oops, not jsb, it will be jsx. I'll just make the rename, so make rafce. So this grid pattern, either you can follow through, as you see, if you just go through it, there is a background over here. You can either get it as an image, but I want to create it from using the SVG. So let's go and create that one. I'll just go in a faster on that, because either you can create it or you just follow through it. It depends on you. I'm not gonna pushing you to use that one. It's just an SVG from of the grid pattern I'm gonna use. So I'm just gonna popping up, and you will get that in the file. So go through that file and read more about it, because if I want to explain, it will take an entirely another video to explain. So I'm just gonna get through it. So I'm gonna get the block on that, and also I'm gonna get that offset and other as the props. So that's the pattern I'm gonna use. And now I'm gonna get that use ID and other pattern. Okay, and now in return, what I want to return an SVG. So again, I'm saying just feel free to go through the file which it will be available in the just get through that grid pattern file, you will get everything there. Then if you want to use it, otherwise you just create it as a background image and then you can use it. So in the testimonial, so we are here now. What I'm gonna do, that's the testimonial, right? So here I'm gonna get that, oops, it will be grid pattern. So now in that grid pattern, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keeping it as a positioning, and also I'm gonna giving that props for that Y offset for 256. As you see, I think nothing it will be available right now, as because we need to pass that. So that's the clients, and after the clients we need to pass the testimonials, right? So first of all, it will be testimonials here. So testimonials, testimonials. So now here also we need to give that, we will pass the clients, and also we're gonna pass that logo. And don't worry, we're gonna get that one. So that logo for be a dark, which we need to import from the images. So let's go in the top and let's import that one. So now we are passing that as a props, we are passing the name and on the logo. As you see, that's the name and logo, we are passing the props, and the text also it gonna be taking out the headache. So now let's go to the testimonial. We need to import that CLSX. Let's import that one. And after importing, okay, I think as you see, that's the pattern is here, but now we need to pass that other portion. So how we can pass, we need to pass that everything inside the props. So now I will take that container, okay, container, and inside that container I'm gonna get it as a fade in. So inside that fade in, I'm gonna take it as a figure of figure, and inside that figure I'm gonna take that black code, and inside that black code I'm gonna take a p tag. Inside that p tag I'm gonna pass that the children. So whatever children we are going to receive, we want to pass it here. As you see, we are receiving that children. So as you see, now we need to just make it looks better. So to do that, what I'm gonna do in here for that figure, okay, that's the figure we want to create. I'm just going to give it a max width of 4 axle, and for the black code also, okay, yes, that's gonna go with some of the class name. And for that p tag also, I'm gonna just keep some of the class name with it. Okay, and that's the black code we are using for before and after content to create that unique style to do that. Because if we are using that actual things, it gonna sometimes having problem whenever we are deploying in the Next.js. So now we need to get that fig caption. So we have that figure because we need to pass that the client and the image. So for to pass that, I'm going to use that fig caption. Inside that fig caption, I'm going to pass that image from the next image. And for that image source, it will be a client.logo. Remember, we are passing that logo, and alt it will be that client.name. And also I want to pass it as unoptimized, and if we save it, I believe we can see that logo. As you see, that logo is available. And now what I want to do, class name empty of margin top of 10. But this one actually getting out of the figure, it will be inside the figure, so the max width it will work. So now this portion is done. That's pretty easy way. So now what we need to do after the testimonial portion, we will create that our services. That's the services section we will create right now. And to create that one, let's just go to the components, create another file, which will be services.jsx rfce. So now that services, close that too. We're gonna pass that after the testimonials. We're gonna pass that services. We're gonna import it, and don't forget to import, because it's all are importing, auto importing from on the top. So don't forget to import, otherwise it will not work. So if we just head back to the bottom, as you see, services is available here. So now in the services, First of all, we will create one intro, remember, and that intro, it will be the section intro, because we created one pages intro, but this one, it will create the section intro with that. So to create that component, it will be section intro.jsx rafce. Now in the section intro, what actually we gonna create? So in the section intro, it gonna be also something similar of that one we have been created before. So I'm gonna just go through a little bit quick way. So now here, what we are actually passing is that container, and inside that container I'm gonna get that fade in. And so inside that container, I'm just gonna take everything is coming through the props, and in the fade in, I'm gonna just go and gap through it to give it the max width of 2xl. Remember, as you see, this extending in the 2xl positioning. So now here, I'm just gonna popping up that h2 tag. Remember, we have been created before h2 for that eyebrow. Actually, just give me a second. Am I using the same? Oh, it's a pages intro. Yeah, that's the section intro. Yeah, but the similar pattern we are following, and also we are going to pass through if the children is available, then we're gonna pass through that div. So that's the changes over here, that if there is a children, then we are passing the div, and if it's invert, because we can also use it for the background color of black and white. So that's the changes is only here. So other pattern is the same. Just go through it, type everything in a good way, it will work. So now let's go to the services. And in the services, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just take an empty braces, and here I'm gonna take that section intro, and inside the section intro I'm gonna pass two things. One is the eyebrow and one is the title, and then I'm gonna also give that class name for that empty24 and other for the LG screen empty of that 40. So now as you see, we are having that services. So now also we gonna pass some of the text. So I'm gonna pass the text inside that p tag, which gonna be as long as those opportunities and other text, as you see. So this services portion is the similar of that. So now what we need to do, we need to create that image portion and the right portion over here. And to create that one, first of all, let's head back to after the section intro. I'm gonna take that one container. Okay, now that container also, I want it to be like empty. It will be a 16 just to make with that margin top. So now here I'm gonna take two div. So and the first div, I'm gonna just put some of the class name for the first div, which gonna be item center and justify end. So now this, the image one, it will be the first div. So here it will be, I'm gonna get everything inside the fade in, and now that fade in, I'm gonna pass another properties for that style images for that. So let's create that styled image.jsx rafce. So we're gonna create that rectangular, that design to having that images. So let's head back to the style. So now actually there I'm gonna just create that as a shape. I'm gonna create two shape. Now maybe it will not understand improperly, but go through the file which it will be available, then just recreate that shape. You're gonna understand in pretty similar way. So that will be the shape I'm gonna use for that width, height and the path to create that unique style shape. So now after having that, what actually I want to take that one inside the props. So I will shape, it will be 0, class name and the props, whatever the props we are passing through. And now we're gonna pass that ID. We're gonna make that use ID, and that we are going to take from the React. And also we're gonna take that weight, so the const it will be like that, weights and height and path we're gonna take from that shape, and we'll just take that variable inside that shape format. So now the first div, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass that class name with that div. So let's import that CLSX, and now it's the similar patternable way which actually we're gonna go through with that. We're gonna passing through that SPG. Again, I'm saying I'm gonna create some of the video to how to create the SPG and the foreign object within the SPG. So for this video, just feel free to follow it through. If you don't understand, let me know in the comments below or reach me out with my email, then I'm gonna help you out to how you can implement that one and where you are not understanding that one. So that's the pretty much all. And also we are actually going to using one image, and that image actually we're gonna pass it as an object. That's the image, and that image source it gonna be passing with that object. So now what we are having there, that SVG, we are wrapping that SVG giving a foreign object which we're gonna import as the image. So inside that SVG, that's the foreign object, which one will be the image. So let's head back to that. And now also we are passing that other shapes and clip path. So our styles image is done. So let's go back to our services where we gonna use that one. So in the fade in, we're gonna just implement that style image. Okay, oops, it will be a self-closing div, and once we give it here, I believe, okay, cannot this structure property. Okay, to make the things happen, okay, first of all we need to get one image. So I have one image in the source file, which is the name of that image laptop. So import a laptop, oops, it will be laptop from images, and it will be, oops, laptop.jpg. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass that image with that within that properties. So to do that, I'm gonna passing, because the width and height we need to pass it as a prop, so I'm gonna give it a mean width and height with that, and also I'm passing that image through there. Okay, so now what's the error I'm getting? Stylist image, I think the CLSX it's just not imported. Okay, that's imported already. Okay, that shapes is not getting the shapes actually. So instead of keeping the name as shapes, why it's not taking it? I think, yeah, we need to pass that within the shapes, not in the shape. That's why it's not actually getting that one. It's not finding that array. That's why it's having that issue. So if we go here, okay, still we didn't see anything. So let's go in the top level of the div. Let's see how we can let's fill in with that. So first of all, in that top level of the div, I'm gonna just go and grab that as the properties of the flex and justify center, and I'm giving a width of half of that, but still I'm not getting anything for the fade in, because we need to give it within I think width for that fade in properties, so that it gonna actually find how it's gonna be popping up. So giving an width and height. Okay, so now as you see, the image is available. If we just remove the source, I believe, as you see, that's the structure image, like the properties we create. Only that foreign object, we are passing that image as the source value, so that we can grab those things. So now after that portion, we need to create this similar pattern of list item, and to create that, so after the container, I think that we are in the services, so the section intro, and after the section intro we have that fade in. So that's the div contain everything. So now we need to pass that list item, and to create that we will create another file which will be list.jsx rafce. So now in that list we're gonna create two portion. One will be the list item, another will be the list. So first of all, in the list, what we're gonna take some of the things as a props. Oops, it will be class name, and then it will be the children. So now what we're gonna actually return, instead of that div, we're gonna return that fed in stager, and then it will be stager or stager the way you feel good to use it. And then I'm gonna pass it as the children properties. And also for that UL portion, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass the variable for as a role, and also the CLSX with the giving the class name to just go through in between with that. So that's the things done. So now after that, we are going to export another things, which will be export it will be const, and it will be that list item. And that list item also, we're gonna take some of the things as props, which will be that title, and also it gonna take as any children. So now in return, what we gonna pass that in return, we're gonna return as an li the list item. So we're gonna get that inside that fed in portion, and also we're gonna create another portion which will be border. So first of all, let's just put that stylish things here in the list item, because that border we need to create in a good way so we can utilize in other ways. So wherever we want to use, we can use that border. And to create that border, I'm gonna take another components. Remember, I told you we're gonna use lots of reusable component, so you can use it in future, just passing through the props and other things. So now in the border, what we actually want, we're gonna get some of the things as props. You're gonna get class name, position, invert, which will be by default as false, and also the component, it will be a div. So now in that component, we're gonna get a self-closing component. Remember, we're getting it as div. So now here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna pass those class names which gonna be triggered through. So it gonna depends on the class name, it will be relative and absolute after absolute. So, and also invert, how it will be, and also whenever is position top, how it will be, whenever the position left, how it will look. That's the simple class name. What I recommend you change the class name, try to just toggle through it, see how it works. Okay, feel free to see it. But for my build, if you just go through each and every class name properly, it will work just fine, and you're gonna have this application entirely in your own. And if you cannot cope up with my build, just get the clone the repository I'm gonna give you, take the file and then go through it. It will be very simple for you. So now also what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass those props for that borders. And don't forget to get that CLX, import it, otherwise it will cry for an error. So now in the list item, here we are going to use, after that fade in, we're gonna use that border, which we are going to import from there. So now in the border, we are going to go through it that conditional way. But first of all, I want to just go and give some class name. And by the way, if you are having any problem, any issue with the Tailwind class names I'm using, just let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna explain how and whatever class name it's gonna working in which way. And if you have any problem, go to TailwindCSS.com and you will find just if you just want to, feel free to just go to TailwindCSS.com, put central K and just type any of the class name. Like I want to make that font semi-bold. Okay, semi-bold. So you will get the font weight. You just check how the semi-bold and which font weight is giving. So everything is available over there. So now in that border, what I want to put, that if the title is available, only then it gonna return something. Okay, it's gonna return that strong tag, a strong, and okay, and that strong tag, it gonna pass through two things, and I'm gonna use that backtick, and that backtick I'm gonna give that title, because I'm gonna use the comma lateral, and also it gonna passing us one space with that. And for that title, let's just make that strong, giving some class name which will be the semi-bold, and text it will be neutral. And after that, if there is title only, then it will pass that, otherwise it gonna just wrapping up through the children. So we have that list item, we have the list, so now we can be able to use that to here in that services. So now we will pass that list, and that list we're gonna import from the list, and then we're gonna pass that list item, which also we're gonna import from the list. And so the list item, we're gonna pass the text, remember that's the text, and that list item also gonna take a title. So let's give a title for it, which the first one it will be development. Okay, so that's the one. So now let's see, we are already thriving with the error. Yeah, that error is coming from the list. Remember, I told you, I remind you, don't be messing with that CLSX because it's a tiny little bit, so difficult to see. Just import it, it will work. Okay, so our error is gone, and as you see, we have that web development. So now we need to create in that proportion. Okay. Okay, that looks fine. So now in the services for that list item, I also want to give some of the class name for it. Okay, list item. Now what I want to do, I want to just take all over the list item I have. So I have the other list item, which is the application development, e-commerce, custom content management. Okay, so am I get it? Okay, that's the one. Okay, and now if we just making an hot reload, if we just know how the fade in and fade stagger is working, as you see, it just loading with a very careful way and looks very competent and good. So now it's time to create that another portion which gonna be for that context section. So to create that context section, again we are going to create our another component. Let's close the services list, and here it will be .jsx. So this context section, it's gonna be after that services. So the context section, and I believe it will be visible here as the context section. So now let's start working with that context section, and as you may see, instead of div, I'm gonna take a main tag. Oops, not the main tag, because I'm working with that context section. So instead of the div, I'm gonna use one container. Okay, container, and that container will consist that fade in. Okay, so now what we are going to pass with that, so let's just give some class name to that container because I want it to looks a bit in a good way. And for that fading section, which gonna come up with a background, as you see, so that's the background we're gonna give it here, and also the rounded portion, so that's the one. So now inside that fading, I'm gonna pass a div. Inside the div, I'm gonna pass an h2 tag, which gonna say that tell us about your project. But you will not see anything because what we need to do, I need to pass that class name for it. So let's go here and give that class name, which will be the text will be white. Looks cool. And also in the top level, it will be max width, it will be 4 pixel, and mx it's gonna be auto. So now after that h2 tag, I'm gonna take another div. Inside that div, I'm gonna take the button. Remember, we use that button component. Say hello. So now here in the button, we need to pass that. It will not be visible here. As you see, the button component, the actual button, the way it's supposed to be, it's not, because if it's in the background, invert should be like that. So we need to pass the props, that invert props, remember? So first of all, I'm gonna pass that href, which will be contact, and also, oops, it will be out of that. I'm gonna pass that invert, just invert. and then the button, it will be changed. As you see, that looks pretty sick. So now the class name empty6, and we're gonna just keep it as a flex, just in case if you're using the flex. So now after that div, we're gonna create another div, and I'm gonna just popping up through our offices. And now after our offices, let's see what we have. We have that, okay, the other portion, which is gonna be enlightened to get that addresses and other things. So first of all, let's go to in the top level of the div, because we're gonna give a border and giving a weight to look something better. So our offices, and remember we have our offices one there, so we're gonna just get that, import that component, and also we need to use that invert, otherwise it will not be popping up. And also we can pass the class name. We're just gonna give it as a grid section of 2. So this is the things, and if we click, it will take us to the contact portion. So now if you did everything with me properly, you're gonna just scroll through it and you see how clean and beautiful effect you just created here. Okay, so now it looks so perfect and so clean. If we just go through our about us section, you can see that about section is working pretty much fine in a very good way. And also if you go to our process, it's working fine. So we are going to create our process page right now. So in our process page, what we have actually, we have 3 portions: one discover, build, deliver, and then another one our values. And so these 4 portions we are going to create, because this one we already have, we just gonna call that components. So let's go back to our process page. So that one, it will be process, and in here we are going to create that. Okay, so now we are having that pages intro. After the pages intro, I'm just gonna take one div, and inside that div, okay, because we need to place it inside one empty braces. So now one, it will be discover, and then it will be build, and after one it will be deliver. And when this entire things, we're gonna wrap it with a div, and after that div, we're gonna have another one which gonna pass us the values, and that contains contact section. We're gonna just place it right now because we have that one. So if we go in that process section, I think we're already here. So this portion is done actually because we created that component. So now we will create this portion. Okay, so let's head back here, and to create the discover, let's create a discover component. So it will be discover.jsx. Okay, now in the pages here, I'm gonna take that discover. And also, by the way, for that one, we need to just go through and give some class name to that, because I'm going to implement it in a good way. As you see, if we come over here, there is some gapping and merging working with that. It's not coming with the container, so it's getting the overall entire width and other things. So now let's head back to our discover. Okay, I think, yeah, this discover is available somewhere. Yeah, so now in the discover, I'm gonna take a section. Okay, so instead of that div, I'm gonna create that section, and I believe we need to create that section. Okay, the first one. Okay, I'm gonna create that section here, which gonna take the title and other things. So const I can create here, or I can create a different section which can be available in entire div to create that thing. So instead of creating that, okay, I'm gonna create a section JSX RAFCE. So now in that section, actually I'm gonna pass all other things. So first of all, the section gonna take that props as a title, image, and children. So in the return, I'm gonna return as a container. Okay, let's import that. Now inside that container, I'm gonna pass that. Remember, actually I believe we are we did that similar pattern where we are passing that stagger like styled image. I believe we did it somewhere here for that. If we go to main pages, and yeah, that over here, services, right? So let's go back to our services. In the services, what we are passing in the services, we have the section intro, and we have that okay, that's the similar pattern actually we are going to create. Okay, so let's go in the section. In the container, I'm gonna take two div, so one div and then another div. Inside that div, I'm gonna take that fade in. Inside that fading, I'm gonna take that styled image. Okay, so now that is style image, remember we're gonna pass that image properties. So style image, whatever the properties, the props we're gonna passing through it, gonna take it in our way. And also in the top level of that context section, wherever I'm gonna give that properties to create that particular design. And also in the top level of this portion. And now in here, I need to just make it in a flex and justify center. So now that fade in portion is done. After the fade in, after end of that div, I'm gonna take another div, and inside that div, I'm gonna take another fade in. And inside that fade in, let's take a div, and inside the div, I'm gonna pass that h2 tag, which going to be responsible to give me the title. Actually what I'm doing, I'm gonna creating that one, that title, then this portion, and that's in like the other pattern with that whatever is going to accomplish. So now let's head back to our file. So in the top level of the div, let's go and give that class name for that one, and also for that the bottom level of the div, it will be going through that font and text, a similar simple stylish pattern. And now I'm gonna pass, so giving that title as a font of 3XL, so that will go through in that title. And now what it gonna go, it gonna after that h2 tag, I'm gonna take an okay, h2 tag I'm giving. Okay, instead of actually what I want to pass, I want to pass a self-closing div here. So that div will contain everything with that self-closing section. So now here I'm gonna get another div, and that div gonna pass any of the things we are passing as children. Remember, we're gonna pass a lot of things with the children. This everything gonna comes up with the children, so we're gonna pass that children in a bit. And that children, we're gonna pass that class name, which will be empty of 6. So this is the section we are gonna actually predefine and use in all of the 4 section for the discover, build, and deliver. So now let's head back to discover. So now what I want to do, I want to wrap everything with that section. Okay, and that section we are going to give the title of the section, so it will be title, and that title will be called discover. And also I need to get one image, and that image, it will be that whiteboard image, and I'm gonna pass that image as props, and that image as source, it will be that image whiteboard. So now as I did that, if I go back to there, okay, where we are, okay, we are in the main page. So let's go to our process section. Okay, we are in the section, but still we are not having anything yet. So let's go to that below the section, let's get a div, and in that div I'm gonna get some of the p tag, which I'm gonna implement here. The simple text, feel free to copy, or you can keep your own text the way you want to implement. Okay, Okay, so let's see if we, as you see, we are having the discover needs and other things, so we just need to implement that text pattern. So what I want to do in the top level, let's just pass that. So now, as you see, our text is ready, but there will be the image, which is we are not getting. So I believe we are having some issue in the section. So that is the image whiteboard. We are getting the image, and now in the section, okay, we are passing that styles image. We are getting the image. Okay. Am I missing something? I think we need to also pass the shape, maybe. Yeah. So because it's gonna coming up from the shape, so let's shape 1. Nothing, but we can see the images. What we are missing actually. Okay, I believe I have the point where I actually find that issue. Actually, remember the same thing we face whenever we are passing that fade in portion. So that's the where we are actually having that problem. So we need to pass that fade in proportion. So now as you see, we are getting that value as that. So now I just want to check another things. If we just get with that shape, let's see if it's working or not. Okay, if we give 1, yeah, now that's actually working. So we can actually shuffle through the shape. And also if I want to give that shape number 3, as you see, I think okay, shape 3 is not there within height. Okay, I'll just keep it shape toggle through 1 to 1. So I think that will be fine. So now that's the section, and we are passing that with that discover. And now after having that portion, the section portion, we need to also pass through another variable. So after the end of that div, I'm gonna pass another h3 tag, which gonna pass that included in this page. And now here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass a tag list. Okay, so we can actually create some tag file, and to do that I'm gonna create the tag list.jsx rafce. So now in that tag list, we're gonna pass through that. Actually we're gonna pass a 2 function here, and I'm gonna just go in a simplistic way. And that 2 function, one it will be for the tag list, and another it will be the tag list item. And the tag list, it will be an unordered list, and inside that list I'm gonna passing the tag list as a tag list item as a children, so we can go through it. And that the flex and wrap, just a simple understanding of that class name, feel free to go through it, you'll feel it better. So now go through the discover, and here we're gonna pass that tag list. So let's go to that tag list. Now here I'm gonna pass that tag list item. So now inside the tag list, now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just grab through all the tag list is available for particular that things. And also for the class name, it will be just it will be empty of 4. So now as you see, after getting reload, as you see, that's the tag list is available. So this is the first is done with the discover. And after the discover, remember we have another portion which will be the build. So let's open a file which will be build.jsx rafce. So now here, and also it will be build. So now let's create everything for the build. And to create for the build section, it will be the similar pattern of that section we have been created. So let's go to the build, and we're gonna wrap everything over here with that section. Okay, and that section for the build we're gonna use another image, which gonna be that laptop image. And now to let things popping up, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass a title and I'm gonna pass the shape, which will be number 2. So as you see, we are having that, and we are getting the title and also the serializable number. So now what I want to do for the build, that will be another div, and we're gonna pass that all other text is responsible as the children. As you see, those the text is available, and that section, if you go back to the section, remember we are passing every single similar things with the props, and empty. If we just put an empty of 20, as you see the separate gap, it will be different from the way, as you see, is the margin top of the 20. So that's the where we are actually creating the style. So now we're having the section, and then we are gonna get with that black code. So where we are gonna use the black code, we're gonna use it here to create that code. And for the black code, actually what we can do, because we need to create that component for the black code where we can actually pass through the images and other things. So let's create that. So it will be block code and JSX RFCE. So now in that block code, what actually we are gonna pass it, we're gonna take all the props is available, props, and also now we're gonna pass two things. One, it will be the block code with image, and another it will be block code without image. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just go and implement it in a bit faster way, because it's the same the component flavor. So now there will be two function. Let's just import the border, okay, border, and also the black code image. So now we're taking one is with the black code with image. So how it gonna heading up whenever the black code having one image, we're gonna pass that image and the props, and we are giving the sizes for the image and class name for the image, and what kind of type of and how it gonna react for that black code, we are passing that, and the author and the images. That's the pretty much simple setup of that. So if there is an image, how it gonna work, if it's not an image, how it gonna render through it. And after that, we are also giving that black code without image. If there is no image, how the things gonna be there. As you see, author.name, author.role, as you see, name, role is here, and that p tag like the children is we are passing the children, and this style for the children. So let's go through it. And after the black code, after heading through that two, we need to pass through a condition for that. So instead of that return, we're gonna return a conditional return if props.image, if there is an image for that black code, because we're gonna reuse that component later on. We're gonna return something which gonna be block code, I think with image it will be the first one, and in that portion we're gonna take everything as props. And now if there is no black code, no image like the normal, so it's gonna return something also, and that return it will be, it will be a block code without image, block code without image. And remember, we are gonna pass everything the props is required to over there. So now we are passing that black code. So now let's go back to the build section. So here, after finishing that div, we're gonna pass that block code, and now in that block code we're gonna pass that, just to make that studio clone. And now remember, we need to pass two things. One is the author, one is the role, and for this one we don't have image, so we are not gonna pass any images. So after having that, as you see, that things is working just fine. Now if you remove this two, as you see, it will gonna cry for that, because either you need to give that name role or you need to pass that the image. So if you want to change anything, you can just change the role or other things. So now that's the build. So after the build section, we're gonna have the another one, which is gonna be the deliver. And to create the deliver, let's create the deliver component. Okay, deliver, and here it gonna be, oops, I just opened the settings, it gonna be deliver. So the deliver portion, it will be available here, I think somewhere, maybe. Yeah, that's the deliver. So now in the deliver, what we need to do, we need to create the simple pattern of the section. Okay, and how we are going to create, we are going to create in that way. So that will be the section. Okay, and import that section from the section. So the same way we are passing the image, and remember we need to get the image actually, otherwise it's gonna throw that error. And the shape, it will be number 1 shape. So that's the image of meeting, and the text we are passing like the props, it gonna render. So that's the meeting, is just looking pretty much fine. So now after that we need to pass that list variable, the list item. Remember we already worked with the list and the list item. So after that div, I need to also add one h3 tag to include that included in this page. And remember we have that list beforehand, we work with that. Now we're gonna pass that list item. Okay, so inside that list item, I'm just gonna pass my list item, which gonna go with the title and other description of the text. As you see, that looks fine. So now it's pretty much all to create those portions. So now also we can also make that balancing reliability and innovation. So reliability and innovation, so we can do it after that proportion. So now we have that 3 portion: discover, build, and deliver. I know everything is going so faster, and maybe some portion you will not understand the way you should understand. So what I am going to give you an idea, just feel free to clone the link, which gonna be the GitHub link, then get it all things which gonna working pretty much all the one we are typing here. I'm gonna give it to you, then you can get the idea how actual thing is happening. So now this thing is done. So after the deliver, we need to now create the values. And to create the value, remember that's the values, it will be here. And to get the value, we need to create another file, which will be values.jsx rfce. So now we need to pass values here. So let's go to the values, and inside the values we're gonna just put the similar things in a very good like clickable fashion way. So in the value, in the top level of the div, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just pass some of the class name for that, which gonna be relative, and margin top, margin bottom, the same pattern level things there. Oops, it will remove the values. Now I'm gonna pass a div, and inside that div I'm gonna pass that grid pattern to initialize the image. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just get some class name for both of that. So that's the grid pattern, which is going to be an offset -270, which is available here. As you see, that's the grid pattern. Okay, that we're gonna create. So now grid pattern is available. So now what we need to do, we need to create a section intro. So after that div, remember we have been created the section intro, which gonna get that eyebrow and the title. So the eyebrow, it will be the eyebrow of our values, balancing reliability and innovation. As you see, that's the one. And as a props, I'm gonna pass that ptag to create some of the unique text. So okay, that's the portion is done. So now we need to create this portion, which gonna take that other portion. So the section intro is done. Let's head back to the container. Okay, so import the container, and inside that container, what I am gonna do, class name empty of 24, just need to be looks better. So now here I'm gonna get another components, which gonna be give us that grid list. And in the similar way, remember we create that order list and the list and list item. We're gonna also create that same pattern on that here. So in that grid list, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna get two things. Just a simple pattern. We're gonna get the class name, we're gonna get the children. So now in here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make that fade in stagger to create in a logical fade, and then here it's gonna be that UL, the one you may understand now. So it's gonna be UL, the unordered list. And now also we're gonna popping up another function where we're gonna pass that the other one, which gonna be grid list item. And anyway, actually instead of just popping through that, exporting some default variable, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just return it in a like grid list to just that it looks a little bit a fashionable way. So let's import that CLSX. So now actually what we are, I think we use the fade in also. Okay, so now we are passing the two valuable things. Okay, okay, let's also get the border. Okay, so now it's complete. So now in that grid list, we are passing that a list variable, which is getting that unordered list, and that list gonna take the list item, and that list item we are passing with that grid list item, and we are passing all the class name to make the style, and then we are giving that border, and also we are passing that invert. If the background is black, it will work, and if it's white, how it gonna be like white and neutral. So that's the title. It gonna be make it as a strong, and then it's gonna be passing up that children over there. So let's go back to our values. So in the value on the container, I'm gonna pass that, oops, it will be grid list, and now inside that grid list I'm gonna pass that grid list item. So now inside that grid list item, I'm gonna just popping up all the grid list item I have, which gonna take the title as title and all other things as the props. So now as you see, all other things is coming and that props is working, and this thing is coming from the border. Remember, we are wrapping the grid list within the border. So if we just if we just remove the border from there, how it gonna looks. So if we remove the border, you're gonna see that border work is not happening. Remember, we are giving one designing in the border. So that's the border we are created from there. So now that border is passing with the positioning we're giving with the left, and padding left of 8. If we give 28, you're gonna see how much far it's gonna reach through. As you see, it's gonna take the padding left of 20. So that's the way we are creating that one. So I believe that is smooth and good. So we finished that. Now for our today's build, we're gonna create also the contact section. So let's remove those portion. Let's go to our contact page. And in the contact page, we have same the section, the page intro and others. So I believe the page intro we already did. So now we need to create that portion. Our offices we have been created, email carriers we just gonna create from the scratch. So let's head back to our contact page. Okay, so that's the contact page. Now inside here, I'm gonna pass that container. Okay, let's get that container, and inside that container I'm gonna take a div, and inside the div we're gonna pass two things. It will be the contact details and the contact form. So first let's create that contact details .jsx rfce. That will be the contact details. Oops, it will be the self-closing div. And for the container also, we're gonna take that properties for that margin top and other things. And for that div overall, it's gonna be a grid pattern div, which gonna be LG's devices. It will be grid of 2 column. And by the way, I'm passing everything as an like responsive way. Okay, don't forget that I'm just going through and I don't know it will be responsive or not, but it's responsive, fully responsive. If you just toggle through it, you can see it's fully responsive. it's working fine. So now you need to just balance it through with the padding and margin the way you want to keep it, but it gonna be responsive. So feel free to toggle through and try to understand in a better way, then you're gonna find it how responsive it is. So now let's just so one will be the contact details and another it will be the contact from .jsx rafce. Oops, it will be contact from, and now that contact from, it will come here, contact from. So first of all, let's head back to the contact details, and inside the contact details, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wrap everything inside that fade in. Now in that fade in, I'm gonna pass in two properties. One will be our offices, and then prefer doing things just simple text preferences. So that's the thing, our offices. And now remember, we are passing that offices beforehand. We created that component, so that's the beauty whenever you are using that component wise. So now as you see, we are having our offices, so we can pass that style as the props. As you see in the offices, we are passing the props, so you can pass anything, the class name, any other things as props. So that's the things is done. So now after the offices, I'm gonna wrap everything from the border, and that border, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just give that class name to create a very unique way, and now I'm gonna pass that, so it gonna give us through that. See the border and the top level of that. So now let's the email us. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a DL tag, and then I'm gonna take an inline array, and that array will contain two separate arrays. So now there's a kind of inline which can be work, just to let you know. And that in the map, I'm gonna map through it, and that I'm gonna map through it with the label and email. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna return, and inside that return proportion, I'm gonna return a div. Okay, and the key, it will be email. And now, so the data table, which I'm gonna pass that as label. So now let's see what we're getting. We're getting email us. I believe that's the same thing. Yeah, we're getting email us. And now what I am gonna do, I'm gonna also go and grab some class name for it, and this entire that one data label, I'm gonna give some grid pattern to let it work. As you see, we're getting two different setup. So now to get the data, and we're gonna wrap it with the link, and now we're gonna pass that email. So now to pass that about oops, I think the, okay, I think the href we need to provide, and inside that href, I'm gonna with that backtick, and it will be mail to, and now inside that I'm gonna pass it through the email. So whatever the email you give, you're gonna pass that email to that. Okay, and now also I believe that's the email, and also we need to give that class name to let it see through. Oops, it will be here. Okay, so if you click, it will open your email and you can go through it. So whatever email you want to put, like I want to put my email, which gonna be React BD. You can put your email so that it can go with that. And if you are having any inquiries regarding if you have any problem, just give me email with that. I'm gonna reach out to you to solve your problem if you have any kind of things. So now that's the email portion is done. So now after the border, I think we are having another one is the follow us. So we're gonna get another border, and now in that border, remember, we can actually give it another icon h2 tag, which gonna say us to follow us. And remember, oops, we don't want to do it again. Okay, we are having the internal server error. I believe we are messing with something. Okay, I'm gonna cut that. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make it npm run deb. So maybe some network error to create that internal server error. So let's head back to there and go back to the localhost 3000. I think it will be fine. Okay, just give it a time to load that one. As you see, it's actually load through it. Sometimes it's happen with the network error, so don't freak out, just work through it, it will be work just fine. So we are heading through that follow us. So now also in the border portion, in the top level of the border, we need to tell where the border it will be. So now that's the follow us. And remember, we are having one link with the social media. So now we can just put that social media here, and we're gonna put that class name, which will be empty of 6. So now the social media, it will just appear over here. Okay, just now as you see. And if you click again, you can view and you can go whatever the platform you are following through. So in that way, we have the finished the contact left part. So now it's time to work with that contact form. And to work with the contact form, it's very similar way. So let's go back here, and also we're gonna use that fade in. So it's gonna give a very good transitioning and design with that. So in the fade in, we're gonna use a form, and that form, the action we are not gonna create. So first of all, I'm gonna take that h2 tag, which gonna be giving us that work inquiries. So as you see, that's the form. So this is the portion we're gonna create. So now first of all, after that h2 tag, I'm gonna take another div, and in that div, I'm gonna make that as a border and other portion. Okay, remember it has a border, that's the border we are creating, and once you click, as you see, it's giving us another designing pattern. So now in that div, I'm gonna create another components which gonna give us that text input.jsx rfce. So all the text input we're gonna manipulate from here. So we're gonna create only one text input with actual design, then we can toggle through it. So for the text input, we're gonna take 2 portions, and the props, it will be one will be the label and another it will be the props, and the const id, it will be using that use id from React. And now in that return, we're gonna return a div, and inside that div, I'm gonna pass that very class name to make it looks better. And now here we're gonna pass 2 things. We're gonna pass one input, and we're gonna pass another label. So that's 2 things we're gonna pass. And for that label, we're gonna pass that label, the props, whatever we get, and for that label we are just going to get some class name. So and that html4. So now html4, it will be the id, and the class name it will be there. Now this class name, it will be responsible to create that effect, how the label gonna go up, how it gonna be selected. So again, I'm saying you feel free to go back through all the class name, and then you're gonna get it and understand it better. And for that input, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna keep it as a similar type of type text. I'm gonna passing that id of that use id to just get through everything between, to track it, to use that id, and the placeholder by default it's gonna be empty. And then I'm just gonna be giving that like the style to create it in a very good and a differentiated way. So now what we can do actually over there, we can use the text input to create all the text input we may require. So now let's just import text input. So first of all, we need some of the text input. and I'm gonna give it here. First one, it will be the name and the autocomplete will be the name. The second one gonna be for email, company, phone, and messages. And after saving that, you see we are going to have that. We have name, email, company, phone, messages. So now we need to also create that radio input. So after finishing that input, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take another div, and inside that div I'm gonna make that a field set, and that field set gonna take a legend which gonna be implement with that budget. That's the legend we're gonna pass. It's because remember we are having that legend item, that legend, and then we're gonna have that radio button. So now what we're gonna do to in the top level of that particular div, we're gonna go and give some class name to readable, making it with the border and the other things. That's the portion. Now we will create that radio input, and to create the radio input, take another file which will be radio input.jsx rafce. So now in that radio input, we're gonna create that particular input which gonna take the props and other things. And that is actually the similar pattern which we use for that other one, and we're gonna use that label and other proportions. So I'm just gonna popping things up. Oops. Okay, so now what we are actually doing, we're gonna taking two props, like two things. One is the label, which gonna be the label of that particular text, and then the button properties. So now we are passing that, like whenever the checked, how the border it will be, how the visibility it will be, and then all the other things also we are passing through that label. The name is coming through the name, and that is the design which we are giving for the circle. So now inside that contact form, what I'm gonna do, after that field set, I'm gonna take another div, and then I'm gonna take that it will be radio input. So now I need to use that for radio input button. So let's click it. Now let's save that one, and you see the for radio button, and once we clicking, whatever we clicking, that target is getting selected. So it's a single matter of the button. If you go over here, as you see, whenever the checked, it gonna be color the different, it will be the ring and the other color. So if it's unchecked, it will be the separate color. So now in the top level of that, we need to put it in a grid of 2. So what I'm gonna do, let's go and give some class name to it. First of all, the margin top, it will be, let's give the 6, it will be good. And I'm gonna make it a grid, and grid calls, it will be 1 by default. And whenever it will hit an empty a small screen, it will be grid calls of 2, and also the gap, it will be 8's good. Okay, so now if we go back here, as you see, that looks good. And even we just scroll through this smaller screen, as you see, that looks perfect. And again, I'm saying you that margin padding, you can feel free to go through the way you want to give. Okay, so that looks better. So now after that, after finishing toggling through that div, before finishing that form, we can create a button. So that will be the button. From the button, and it will be, let's actually, I'm just gonna get through that button, and that button will not be inverse, so it will not be working in the background like the black background. So it will always it will be in the white background. So now as you see, and whenever we're gonna click the validation and sending email proportion, we're gonna create it in another video. So that's the designing purpose. We have been done with that design of the contact page. So now if we just toggle through, we have our about us and our workflow and other things. And to go with that, actually, for the about us, pretty much just we need to click on that, which we can is easy to create. So let's create this portion with that about us section. And to create that portion, let's head back to about us. Okay, about, that's the about. Okay, so now in the about, we have page intro, and inside that page intro we have our page. After the page intro, Okay, what we need to wrap things in that empty braces. Okay, so now oops, it will not be from there, it will be the container from the components. So now here, because I want to create this portion and this portion, okay, these two portions we're gonna create, then you're gonna wrap things up. So now to create and implement this portion, what we need to do, we need to create another, is called stat list. So I'm gonna create another file which will be statlist.jsx rfce. So now inside that stat list, the similar pattern, so I'm just gonna heading up with that. So it will be that stat list one, which will be that border faded and faded tiger, which you're gonna pass through, and then you're gonna pass with that DL and the data over there. So these two things we're gonna pass through here. And to combine with the description, what we are going through, we are giving the border and also we are giving the fading. So I believe you're gonna have an idea because we created lots of things about that one. So now in the container, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give a class name, and that class name, it will be empty. Oops, it will be empty of 16. And now I'm gonna pass that stat list, and inside that stat list I'm gonna pass that stat list item. And now that item gonna take two variable, one it will be the value, another it will be the label. If we just go through there, oops, okay, I believe the stat list, okay, let's create that stat list. So it's gonna take the children and the label and value. So these two things we are passing with the label and the value. And after saving that in a border way, it just worked. So now after the stat list, we're gonna have to pass the culture, and I believe so we are having in the about page. So now what we actually can do in the about page, after the container, we can pass through that contact section, so that we can have that little bit of contact form. Okay, so now what we can also mess through it to create the culture, and to create the culture, that will be also pretty much the similar. So let's go and create another components, which will be cultures.jsx rafce. Now in the culture, first of all, in the top level of the div, because we need to make it in a black background, so it will not take any of the props. And here we're gonna pass that section intro. Remember, we have the section intro, and that section intro gonna take one eyebrow, and one will be the balance your passion with our passion for life, and some other things, the text. So if we go back here, we still cannot see that, because after that container we need to pass that cultures. Okay, so you see the culture is available. Now to create other portion, it's very simple. After passing that section intro, we will pass that container. Okay, we're gonna get that container from the container. So now in that container, remember, we're gonna have that grid list, and inside that grid list we have that grid list item, remember. So inside that grid list item, we're gonna pass that 3 item we're gonna want to pass. And also for that container, I'm gonna give a class name which will be empty 16. Okay, so now you're gonna see everything is under the hood. So this is pretty much all for our today's build, and as I said earlier, we're gonna create some custom fetching data. We're gonna create the API and also connect with the database to create this portion. If we go to our home page, as you see, to create that particular workflow to the case studies and others, that data we're gonna fetch through the API, and also there will be another portion, the blog data. It also gonna fetch through the API. If I just cram everything through that particular video, it's gonna be a longer one. So in our, that will be in the second or third part, but in between also we're gonna create that validation part on that other folder, like other video. So now whatever I have here, so it's time to get it through all, to let it, you can also work through it. So first of all, let's go to my GitHub account, and in the GitHub, what I'm gonna do okay, let's just add a refresh, and I'm gonna, okay, this terminal is closed. So first of all, what I want to do, I'm gonna make that git init to initialize the git over here. And as you see, we have one, I have one git ignore file. So now after git init, let's just git add everything whatever I have in this file. And also I'm gonna open a repository, and that repository, it will be, let's create a new one, and that one, it will be Studio YT. Okay, I'll keep it as a public so you can clone it or download it from here. So now as I make that git add, so let's see the git status. Okay, so git commit, it will be initial commit. Okay, so now what we need to do, we will just go through with that. We will just make that git branch as the main branch, and then we're gonna connect through our git remote repository with that. We're gonna connect that, and now what I'm gonna do, git push u origin main. So I'm gonna pushing everything through the main so that you can get it, whatever the things we have been done today, you can get that one also. So let's hit refresh. Okay, it's still uploading, so just give it a time to that. Okay, I think it's done. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy that link, I'm gonna put it in the description below, and also that link, it will be there. So either you can download, you can clone, you can get with the SSH key or GitHub CLI, whatever you feel free, so that you can come through over here. So from our next build, you can just simply follow through, and whatever the styling things you are not understanding, feel free to study a bit with this style and you're gonna get it through it. Okay, so hope you're gonna do it in your own fashion, and I will see you in your next video.